So if you made it to today's show, you're in for a treat as we crack the spamdemic CV code. Now, it appears that these spamdemics are aligned into sun worship and eclipses as they relate to ritual sacrifice. And all of this seems to center around a pivotal date, the year 1957. Now, 1957 was a very weird year. This was the year that the National Guard was called out to Little Rock, Arkansas, to stop 9 black children from enrolling in school. And then President Eisenhower actually countered that by sending out federal troops to provide safe passage for these children so that they could enroll in this school. 1957 also happened to be the year that they first publicized the alien abduction of a Brazilian farmer. This was the first time that they ever really talked about someone being abducted by an alien. And this Brazilian farmer. And you can look through these dates here in Wikipedia for the year 1957 and see everything that went down in this year. We also had the show Leave It to Beaver that debuted. Also, the laser beam was invented in this year. And oddest of all, we had an eclipse. And it was actually the last eclipse of 57 total eclipses in a series. So we had 1957 and an eclipse that ended a 57 eclipse series, which is weird. That happened on April 30th. We're going to talk more about that eclipse. But there was also a very deadly flu pandemic that killed 2 million people worldwide. It was called the Asian flu. We're going to get into more of that as well. Now, the eclipse was strange because it had no northern limit. Here's the eclipse here. And it was what's called a non-central eclipse. Here it is right here. See, it has no northern limit, and it was what's called non-central. And this only happens 2 times every 100 eclipses, so this is a very rare event. But this eclipse is even more rare than you can imagine. Because another strange thing about this eclipse was that it was part of what's called a Metonic Cycle. M-E-T-O-N-I-C, a Metonic Cycle. And what that is it is an eclipse that occurs every 19 years on the same date 4 to 5 times in a row. Let's look at this eclipse and its Metonic Cycle. And this is where our rabbit trail begins. Once we get to the end of this, you're going to be blown away. So, here's the eclipse, April 30th. And as you can see, as we move down the page here, every 19 years, the eclipse repeats on the same date. Isn't that interesting? And this eclipse cycle ends in the year 2033. So again, this is the Metonic Cycle of this eclipse that began in 1957 and will end on 2033, recurring on the same date every 19 years. Now, they did a story on one of these eclipses. Let's pull that up in the cycle. And this was the one that occurred in 2014. They did this story because this cycle within the series, this eclipse within the series, also was non-central with no northern limit. Now, to give you a snapshot into what that means, basically what they say is that the shadow goes off the edge of the earth into space, is the way they describe it. We know that there's something probably much different happening or going on. And this is where we begin to peek around the edges of reality and understand the true nature of the world we live in that they so desperately try to hide from us. But here's the 2014 eclipse that was in the series, this Metonic Cycle, non-central with one limit. When the center of the moon's umbra, this is their explanation, or anta-umbra, just misses the Earth and grazes it on one edge. And so this is what this eclipse looked like in 2014, which is weird because the first one in the series in 1957 did the same thing, or roughly the same thing. It's something about the poles, or the pole. This one going really close to Antarctica, the other one going closer to the North Pole, right? Now, I don't know the nature of what these poles really are. I have my guesses, but this is interesting nonetheless. So here's the story that they did on it. Now we're going to talk more about other ways that the numbers 19 and 57 fit together later in the show, because those are two very interesting numbers. So the eclipse started in China. Let me show you this. It actually ended in the United States. Here's the eclipse here. I'm going to play this. It started in China and ended in the United States. Something else started in China and ended in the United States that year, and it was the deadly flu, the flu of 57 that killed 2 million people worldwide. So I'll play this back one more time so you can see this. Starts in China and ends in the United States. So this is this flu of 1957, and I found this reference to it in this book that came out called Bracing for Armageddon. Let's blow this up. And they talk about this 1957 flu. And it says here, as they describe this 1957 flu, that it almost got re-released back into the human population. And this is the title of the show for today. It almost got re-released back into the human population in 2005, 2004, 2005. How could that have happened? Well, it says a U.S. laboratory accidentally included it in an influenza test kit sent to other laboratories throughout the world. Fortunately, after an alert laboratory in Canada recognized the mistake, the kits were immediately recalled and no one appears to have been infected. Now, what is a deadly 1957 variant of the flu? What was it still doing in circulation on any level in the year 2004? That it becomes the question. And was this really accidentally released? So when the mainstream media tells you that conspiracy theories are ridiculous and what may have actually happened or what could happen is ridiculous, show them stories like this, show them videos like this, or show people videos like this who seem to want to write all this off. Here's an article from the New Scientist, and they're talking all about this accidental re-release of this 1957 flu. So check this out. This just blew me away because they tell you what happened, and apparently this is common practice. There are fears the virus could escape the labs, as the mistake was discovered after the V escaped from a kit at a high containment lab in Canada. Such an escape could spread worldwide, as demonstrated in Russia in the 1970s. The flu testing kit were sent to some 3,700 labs between October 2004 and February 2005. Go figure, right during the season, the flu season. And this is a professional body which helps pathology laboratories improve their accuracy by sending them unidentified samples of various germs to identify. This is the testing kit. So this is a little bit different than a test kit for like the CV, for instance. These were test kits that they would send to labs to help improve their accuracy by sending them these unidentified samples so that they could test to see if they could identify them. But my question is, these things are being sent in the mail. Anything could happen. You could have a car accident or a train accident, however these things are being shipped, or the UPS driver gets hit and the box spills open. It's almost like they want this to be released, or they're doing this as some kind of a decoy to say this is how it might have been released, right? Because they can always say that. Whereas there would be no excuse for the release of this if they weren't shipping this stuff out all around the world. You see how this works. So this is an article from back in 2005 describing this almost accidental release of an older flu strain that should have been wiped off of the map or locked in a vault somewhere, just in case you need it for research later. But you don't want to have this just floating around out in the public in packages. So, back to this 1957 eclipse and this 19-year series that it was part of. So again, we have 19 and 57, and these are two very peculiar numbers, and they're very closely related to one another. You can see in this picture here how it's been encoded into the architecture of the TTs, we're going to call them. There are 19 individual forks, we'll call them, or tridents. And each fork has 3 prongs. Well, 19 times 3 is 57. And that's how the numbers 19 and 57 are related to one another. 57 is a multiple of 19. It takes 3 number 19s to make the number 57. Now, we have 19 pitchforks, 19 forks. And if you multiply that times the 4 sides of the actual TT, you get 76. 19 times 4 is 76. And if we think of in terms of years, the year 1957, and you add 19 years to that, it comes out to 1976. So do you see the cycle there? I'm going to type this out just so you guys can see what we're talking about here. So there's your 19 times 3, the 57. 19 prongs. This was 19 years ago. We covered this in a previous live show. And 19, let's pick a color here. Let's go over here. So we got 1957. I'm going to get a darker color. Let's go with red. 1957 plus or and 19 years is 1976. Now, that's not an accident. There's some mirror numerology going on within that number, which is unexplainable by any other term, right? And 1976 was 44 years ago. Do you think it's a mistake that there's 244 columns right underneath this facade? There are 244 columns just under this facade, which makes a total of 488 between the two TTs. So you can see now how the numbers 19 and 57 relate to one another. So, what is it that's so special about these numbers to the elite? Why do they care about these numbers? Well, we're going to look into that because the number 19 has a lot of occult meaning behind it. Here are the 244 spaced columns. I wanted to show you that of the TTs, as you see here. All right, So what's going on with this number 19? Well, the elite have a preoccupation with hexagons. And the number 19 is integral to what is called a non-trivial normal magic hexagon. You can't make this up. This is it right here. It's called a non-trivial magic hexagon. And it's the only one of its kind. Here it is in miraculous mathematics. This is the only magic hexagon. There's essentially only one way to arrange the first integers in a hexagonal pattern so that all straight lines have the same sum, which is 38. I want you to remember these numbers because this is going to go off the rails. The magic hexagon pictured above is, up to symmetries, the only non-trivial one which features the first integers. Larger magic hexagons exist which involve consecutive integers, not starting with 1. So this is a magic hexagon, and this is why these people are so fascinated with the number 19, why it was encoded in the TTs, as we just demonstrated. And if you look at ancient lore surrounding the number 19, pulled from this Wikipedia article, you will see some very fascinating references to this, namely the number of angels guarding hell according to the Quran, quarantine, the number of verse and surah together in the Quran which announces Jesus, son of Mary. That's in Quran 19:19. Also, Stephen King's 8-book epic, The Dark Tower Saga, employs the number 19. In the books The Dark Tower, The Gunslinger, The Dark Tower 5, Wolves of the Kala, The Dark Tower 6, Song of Susanna, The Dark Tower 7, The Dark Tower, and The Wind Through the Keyhole as a mysterious and important number. They refer to the Katet of 19. Directive 19. Many names add up to 19. And 19 seems to permeate every aspect of Roland and his travelers' lives. In addition, the number ends up being a powerful key. And now we know probably why. And last, but definitely not least, regarding the number 19, is that the Jewish calendar is based on the 19-year Metonic Cycle. Remember, this is the same cycle in which that weird eclipse occurred in 1957. Are you starting to get what's going on here? Our reality is not what you think. Now, the Chinese calendar, as well as the Babylonian calendar, also follows the 19-year cycle. It's also how we calculate the date for Easter. We use the Metonic 19-year cycle. Now, this 19-year cycle was named after this guy right here. His name was actually Meton. Let me pull him up. Meton of Athens. And they describe the 19-year Metonic cycle. And there was a Greek astronomer, and he talked about the Eclipse as he expanded on the work of Meton, and he proposed that what is now called the Ecliptic cycle. And the Ecliptic cycle runs for 76 years, or 4 Metonic cycles. Remember this? 4 Metonic cycles, 4 19s. 19 on this side, 19 on every other side equals the total 76. Is it starting to sink in yet? Now, what I'm going to tell you next, you've never heard before. And probably what I'm telling you now, you've never heard before. But we're going to confirm this, because up to this point, we're just talking numbers. This 19-year cycle may be the key to proving that the sun and the moon are actually much closer to one another than you may imagine and think. What do you mean, Casey? I mean, if that was the case, someone would have discovered that a long time ago. Well, let's take a look. The Metonic Cycle not only occurs as a series of eclipses occurring exactly on the same date every 19 years, but it also occurs with the moon. The moon, every 19 years, returns to exactly the same place at the same longitude and against the same constellation in the sky with the same phase. Now, if that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what does. Because how is it that the sun and the moon, that are supposed to be separated by tens of millions of miles, follow the same 19-year cycle? That is fascinating. Now, astronomy calls this a coincidence. They say that because the periods of the moon's orbit around the Earth and the Earth's orbit around the sun are believed to be independent and not to have any physical resonance. That's the excuse that they give. But you can't excuse this and you can't ignore it. Now, this number 19 goes even deeper because Diodorus Siculus reported that Apollo is said to have visited the Hyperboreans once every 19 years. Remember all the work we did on Donald Trump and Apollo. And the world's oldest known calculator, which is called the Antikythera mechanism, performs calculations based on both the Metonic and Ecliptic calendar cycles. Remember, Metonic is 19 years, Ecliptic is 76 years. It has separate dials for each. So, if we look at these sick people's occult magic and rituals, every 19 years brings us another blind 11 type event. 19 years after these TTs fell, we have CV19. Do we not? So, if our little theory is correct, there should be corresponding eclipses, right, in this 19-year cycle that overlay the 19-year span from 2001 to 2020, right? And in fact, there is. In fact, there's a very unique eclipse that occurred in 2001 and will occur this year in 2020. That eclipse is the summer solstice eclipse of June 21st, 2001. And it too falls in a 19-year cycle. This is a special eclipse because it occurs on the sun god's date of choice, the summer eclipse, which is the most sun that you're going to get in a year. Think about that for a second. You have the summer eclipse. You have the winter solstice as the sun god's birthday, which is the least amount of sun. And then you have the most amount of sun also being a pivotal date in Apollo's life, the sun god. Now let's take a look at this, and you might want to sit down for this. I believe that what this 19-year eclipse series represents is Trump's Apollo series. Let me show you this. Remember, these occur every 19 years. Here's the series here. We're reading from top to bottom. The very first one in this series, remember, these are 5 eclipses long, 19 years apart. The very first one in this series occurred in 1963. Trump was 17 years old. In fact, he had been 17 years old for 7 days after this eclipse. This was the year that Kennedy left the Earth. Look at all the 17s in this series. 107, 117. The summer solstice, Apollo. The sun god. Every 19 years. Happened again in 1982 on the summer solstice. And then in 2001, 82 days before blind 11, the eclipse came back. 1982, 82 days before blind 11. And now, in 2020, and of course we're in the middle of the CV crisis. In just a few short weeks, the next eclipse in this series will be coming. Now, this 2020 eclipse goes right through, you guessed it, China. Here it is right here. Greatest eclipse is very near to India, and all the people in China will see this eclipse on the summer solstice this year. Now, to round things out, remember there's 4 to 5 eclipses in each one of these series. The last one occurs in 2058 on the summer solstice. Remember all the 58 surrounding Trump? The 1958 Western about a man who builds a wall. The 58-story Trump Tower. Trump won the 58th election of the United States. There's 58 rooms at Mar-a-Lago. And now Trump's Apollo painting makes all the sense in the world. So I hope all this makes sense. To me, this is undebatable. It's undeniable. And I hope this video goes viral. Monday, we're going to be talking about the Real ID Act and how it was postponed until next year, October 1st, 2021. But it was postponed for all the wrong reasons. They're saying it was because of the CV. And really, that thing never needs to pass. And we're going to get into some of the dynamics and details of the Real ID Act. And I hope you guys enjoy that show on Monday. Let's see, how old would Trump be in 2058? Obviously, he'll be long dead, but if he was alive, he was born in 46. 26, 36, 46, 56, 110. He'd be 112. So, nothing there. Nothing to see there. So, that's what I wanted to show you guys today. Oh, we can finish the show with... This is, I guess Michael Jordan has a new documentary. And it's actually called The Last Dance. And so I decided to look at Michael Jordan's mansion in Jupiter, Florida. And this is crazy. So here's his mansion in Jupiter, Florida. And as you can see, it's a mirrored letter J. It's not a letter J written the right way. It's mirrored. It's backwards. J is the 10th letter of the alphabet. And he decided to release this documentary on the 110th day of the year, April 19th, because it's a leap year. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to show you guys that. This is in Jupiter, Florida. And the reason why this came up is because I was looking at my news headlines today. And basically, apparently Michael Jordan did not allow any filming inside of this mansion. Why do you think that is? He said it was for privacy reasons. But I have my guesses. Probably a lot of weird Masonic stuff going on in there, I can imagine. We've got crypto health surveillance, plasma cures. Remember about 2 months ago, I showed you in the film Omega Man, and also in the film I Am Legend, where Will Smith and Charlton Heston used their plasma instead of a VC to cure the zombie apocalypse. And people said, Casey, that's crazy. You're just obsessed with adrenochrome and blood, and you think that the elite drink it and they want all of us drinking it too. Well, now it's a reality. Tom Hanks, Rita Wilson, offering up their what's called convalescent plasma. And they're saying this will be a much more effective treatment for the CV, right? And so here we are. Now let's get into this show here. One of you mentioned to me that Doctor Who, this is a popular British series. It's one of the oldest running series on British television, BBC, which is 223. And that's actually very, very real. You're going to see that in this montage that I put together. But you said, hey, Casey, Doctor Who, that's World Health Organization. And so I looked. And it's weird how these elite work, in their programming. They like to use wordplay and slip things in under the radar. So I did a search through the Doctor Who episodes and found this one that I'm going to show you right now about quarantine, about forced VCs, and it was 9 years ago in 2011. And both of those numbers together mean something. Mean a whole lot, as a matter of fact. So before we get into the montage, the plot goes a little something like this. These three characters, they go into this portal where their timelines are separated. Actually, the girl, she's separated from the timeline of the other two characters. One of the characters is Doctor Who, and the other character is her husband. She gets separated off into this other timeline, this other universe, and they're in a place where an entire planet is under quarantine. And those infected are chased down by android medical staff. They're basically android nurses. And they're armed with VC syringes. And they have these hands that when they touch you, you're stunned on contact and knocked unconscious, right? And they call the VC a kindness, KINDNESS, right? So they're basically framing it as if they're doing a service, right? A kindness to you by giving you this VC. But just before the girl is given her VC injection, as these robots are chasing her down, she says to the robot, this could kill her because of her specific physiology. And I was like, what? So let's watch this montage and you'll see exactly how all this plays out. Let's pull this up here. It's actually from the Doctor Who series, a popular British television series. This is why you guys got to pay attention. And I know the chat can be distracting, but if you're listening to what I say, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Doctor Who series. Let's play this here. The episode's called The Girl Who Waited.
"40 years. Alone?"
36 years.
Thanks. No, right. Look, I mean, You look great.
36 years.
So she's locked in this alternate timeline. This is the young Doctor Who, I believe. And the girl is locked in this other timeline for 36 years. That number sounded familiar to me. Let's keep watching.
36 years. 36 years.
Now, as you can see, she's aged rapidly. Now, this is just from last year, Sunday morning.
36 and counting. That's how many years have passed since AIDS first caught the attention of public health officials.
36 years.
What? Gen 7, The one-day plague. What, you get it for a day? No, you get it. And you die in a day.
The Appalachia is under planet-wide quarantine.
So the planet that's under planet-wide quarantine is called Appalachia. I can't even say it. Probably like a play on Appalachian Mountains, right? Which is interesting because that's here in the U.S. and this is a British show. So there's like the whole planet is under quarantine. That's kind of what we're going through right now, right? And you heard, was that Diane Sawyer? Was that her in this Sunday morning talking about 36 years and counting? Well, that's exactly what's going on. We're 36 years and counting from HV, we're going to call it. You can't say that anymore on YouTube. Any topic that's of any sensitivity whatsoever is immediately defunded, demonetized, putting your channel at risk. This is why we have to be careful on here. Had someone come on and was complaining, if you can't speak freely, then get off the platform. Well, that's just that's a bait and switch. It's a ploy, because they know that once you start speaking like this freely and saying exactly what you want to say, that YouTube, you're basically you're put in line to be chopped off. And this is what they want. So they're going to taunt you and tell you, but we all know here why we have to speak this way, okay? So if you have any questions about what VC means or CV, just ask in the chat. People will tell you, because pretty much everyone here is up to speed. So, let's keep going with this.
What? Gen 7, The one-day plague. What, you...
Now, the plague is called Gen 7. Now, that's a little bit weird, right? Kind of almost sounds like 5G whiz, right? 5-7.
You get it for a day? No, you get it. And you die in a day.
The Appalachia is under planet-wide quarantine. This is a kindness facility for those infected with Gen 7.
It's a kindness facility. See, they want to couch us under kindness, and we got to be kind to people and our neighbors, right? We went through all of American history without really caring about our neighbors. Nobody ever talked to us about, in the mainstream media, about, what you can do to help your neighbor. It was all about separating yourself from your neighbor. Then now all of a sudden, with the CV, they're going to act like, oh, we really care about our neighbors. This is about compassion for people. Well, if people had compassion for people, then they wouldn't be letting these people pass away alone. That's not compassion. You don't even offer the family opportunity to put on like a suit or something to have some last final words. There's a reason for all this. It's double speak, just like in 1984. Let's keep going with this.
There are 40,000 residents in the Two Streams facility. Please remain in the sterile areas. Visiting hours are now.
Now, so there's the robot nurses, right? Robot nurses from, this planet Appalachia that is under planetary quarantine, which is what we're going through right now. The whole planet is under quarantine.
We're carrying unregistered bacteria. Please let me help you.
No, I'm not from this world. Your medicine will kill me.
Medicine will kill me. Medicine will kill me.
She's not from this world. The medicine will kill you, kill her, because she's a different physiology. She's not from that world. And I believe there is a segment of people who will get this VC that could kill them, because that's what it's designed to do. They even admit that there will be a casualty rate from the actual VC. And they still want to force it on us. So, let's keep going with this. So she's locked in this alternate timeline, and one version of her ages very rapidly, and Doctor Who and her husband work to try to rescue her, right? So the metaphor is a 5G whiz enabled robotic enforcement arm of the World Health Organization, who's going to force VCs, fully aware that they'll be deadly for a certain segment of the population. Watch.
Statement rejected. Do not be alarmed. This is a kindness. This is a kindness.
A kindness, right?
Authorized infection on check-in. Version 223. 223.
Doesn't work in here. 223, the garden will be clear now.
So I just want to show you how these numbers are very real. BBC is 223, which is 322 backwards. They repeated it just twice in two separate scenes in the same episode.
223, the garden will be clear now. 223, the garden will be clear now.
The garden will be clear now. That's also doublespeak. They're clearing the Garden of Eden.
Secondary delivery system engaged.
And for those of you with eyes to see, you know exactly what you're looking at. That is a 5G whiz tower. Secondary, this is the secondary method they're going to use to try to get everybody if they can't get you with the VC, right? He just said it himself. Listen to that again. Right here.
223. 223.
Doesn't work in here. 223, the garden will be clear now. 223, the garden will be clear now. 223, the garden will be clear now.
Secondary delivery system engaged.
If that isn't a 5G whiz tower, I don't know what is. Second.
Oh. Don't worry about him. Sit down, Rory.
And we've been talking all about the smiley face eclipse on December 26th, the day after Apollyon's birthday. And here's where things get creepy. Because the episode is called The Girl Who Waited. Who is the girl who waited? It's doublespeak. HV, AIDS, and Kuru Rona are almost exactly 36 years apart. That is the girl who waited. It's just repackaged 36 years later. This is unreal. Watch. There's the Eclipse, December 26th, which encoded is 12, 26. 12 is 6 and 6. 26 is 6 and 6. 66. We're going to talk about that in the show in a little bit. Went right under China and basically ushered in the pandemic. Spamdemic, we're going to call it. That's a Super Bowl before hardly any cases were here in the U.S. Behind J-Lo on the dancers. Smiley face eclipse all over their shirts. This is from 2012, the film. Smiley face on the refrigerator as he's talking about crashing the economy. The howling, it was all about being bitten and infected. And they had smiley faces on there too. The killer actually used them as his calling card. He left these smiley faces all over the film. This is all about infection. The smiley face is about infection. That's what it's always been. This is in Gremlins.
You named him after me?
Needed a bit of company.
So he's like your
Pet.
safe?
Yeah. I disarmed it.
How? You disarmed it.
Cut off your hands or wash your hands. Frequent hand washing. They cut off the arms of the smiley face to disarm it. Subliminal programming. Now, this, in their own words, this is a Forbes article. I'll put a link to this in the pinned comment, where they compare HV to CV. Few recent studies on the effects of HV and CV indicate that they do have some similarities. This is the girl who waited 36 years apart. Shanghai-based researchers provided evidence that CV can infect T lymphocytes, that's your immune system, the same cells targeted by HV. Other researchers have documented that individuals with severe CV may exhibit lymphopenia, or an atypically low number of lymphocytes in the blood. Likewise, HV infection results in this abnormality. The two are somehow related. I don't know exactly how, but they have similarities. It's by a Forbes article. Let's look first at the infection of T lymphocytes, or white blood cells. The authors of this report provide evidence that CV can infect certain white cells in a laboratory setting. The only difference is that when they infect those T lymphocytes, they do not proliferate. They just go inside. They lack the ability to actually replicate. Infect, but not replicate. I don't know what the difference is, but that's what the Forbes article says. This is crazy. The girl who waited. This from 2011 episode of Doctor Who. Oh, the girl who waited 36 years was HV. That's the end of the video there. New York was already talking about gas masks and spam-demics in Cyrus's way back in 2014. June 24th and 25th actually is a very special date. June 25th is 88 days after the 88th day of the year. Okay? Think about that for a second. 88 days after the 88th day of the year. And on the eve of that, June 24th, is when they kicked off this TNT fashion show with gas masks in New York City. This was in 2014. Now, I want you to look at the front door of this show. This fashion show that TNT threw. Basically, what they were doing is they were promoting a series called The Last Ship. Now, we decoded this way back when it came out. I'm going to show that to you later in the show. We decoded The Last Ship, and it was all about this ship that basically was the last uninfected place on Earth after a red flu wiped out the entire planet. So I just showed you how this launched this fashion show in honor of The Last Ship, launched on 88 days after the 88th day of the year, or the eve of. And look at the door here. 8 and 8 dots on top, 8 and 8 dots on the bottom. So there's your 88 days after the 88th day of the year, right there on the door. Look at the name that they gave this fashion show. Survival is an art. What this really says is survival NASI art. Survival na see art. You can't make this up. Survival, because you spell this part backwards in the middle. And that's exactly what this is. The gas mask, this is all right around from the 1940s. Okay? Now the 88 makes a whole lot of sense. This is code for HH. 88 is code for HH, or Hail Mittler, we're going to call it. And it's interesting because in Germany, the number 88 and HH is illegal to speak or write. If you're caught communicating, speaking, or writing 88 or HH, you will be fined and possibly even arrested. But apparently not here in the United States. Now it's interesting because the German Chancellor building is in the shape of a giant H. But they won't tell you that, will they? There's also another one that's right next to it. There's actually two H's that form the German Chancellor building in Germany. We've covered that. Actually, you know what? I think this would be a great time to pull that up in Google Earth. Let's see if Google Earth will launch. And I'll show that to you. Here's the series, The Last Ship. Now I'm going to show you bits and pieces of that fashion show because it is very disturbing. Very disturbing. Let's close this. All right. What is this? Oh. This is talking about the red flu from the series The Last Ship, about how it was an outbreak and basically decimating the entire world. Most people in America died from it, and on the ship they have this crew that they're working feverishly to find a cure so they can save what's left of humanity. Okay, before we open up Google Earth, I want to show you just some bits and pieces of this fashion show. Let's put this right here. Okay, so these are the characters. You'll probably recognize them. Where'd they go? Here, look at some of these masks. That's like Pinhead from Hellraiser, right? And the lady that actually put this on, the fashion designer, her name is Irene Luft. And Luft means air in German. You know, like 99 red balloons? 99 Luftballons. Luft means air. This is crazy. Look at these. These are like basically masks of the illuminated ones, right? Now we got a show coming up with Future showing how the song is called Mask Off, and this took place during the BET Awards. Once again, on the 88 days after the 88th day of the year, June 25th. This was in 2017. 17 is code for Q. And he did a show on the BET Awards called Mask Off in a song. And he dances around inside of the crown of the sun. Oh, we'll cover that. I think that's tomorrow or the day after. But if you're not subscribed to this channel, take a look at that. Now, they've got some imagery in the background as these models are coming out. Again, this was from 2014. And 20 models come out. I counted them. Put it in fast motion. I counted. There were 20 models. That's basically signaling 2020. 6 years ago. Look at this. In the background, you can almost see a CV in the background. Now, in all fairness, this was all about The Last Ship, which was about Cyrus's, right? But some of these look an awful lot like something we're experiencing right now. I mean, I wonder if these are actually them. Let me play a little snippet of this. Look at that. Look behind her. Are you kidding me? This is crazy. And of course, this is all Illuminati, right? This is what they do. Laugh in our faces. Pinhead. There's exactly 20 of these people. Now, if you add in the 3 actors that show up at the end, that's 23. I don't know what that means. It's kind of a occult number, too. Look at this. Crazy fashion show. Here's one of the last ones. One of these looks like a bird. She's like a bird lady. Look at this. That looks like a CV right there. She got like bird feathers on. Very occult stuff. Then they all parade out. 20 models and 3 actors from the series. Now, I'm going to show you in a minute how we decoded this years ago when it came out. And we tied it into almost exactly what's going on right now. It's almost like we foreshadowed. We didn't know we were foreshadowing it. I was just following the clues like we do on this channel. And it all had to do with eclipses, which eclipses have crowns around them, do they not? And we all know what the crown means in Spanish and Latin. We know what that word is, the word for crown in Spanish and Latin. Now, a large part of this channel is when you hear a clue, you go try to find out what I was talking about. You do not allow cognitive dissonance to scare you away from your own research. So part of it, what we do here, you know, some people complain and they're like, oh, you're being too cryptic. You're being too, you know, you just come out and tell us. Well, part of the learning process is looking this stuff up for yourself. Because if I just tell you, you'll never know the truth. You won't believe me. Cognitive dissonance will step in between us, And you won't even look at the information. You'll just patently, outright reject it. But if I tell you a clue and you understand the connection between eclipses and crowns of the sun, then that concept will then be ingrained in you, and you will understand the concept, and it will help you with other concepts. Okay, this is a learning process, and the occult and what these people are into, it's a lot of it's coded, and they prey on the fact that you will just be asleep and just reject information out of hand. Now, what else do we have here? So, the fashion designer, her name was Irene Luft. Luft is here in German. And remember, we did the whole thing on 99 red balloons. This was about 3 years ago. We did many videos on this channel. You know, it's interesting. As soon as I start hitting a nerve, a channel gets shut down or demonetized. Well, this channel used to be shut down. And when it got shut down is when we were talking all about this stuff. 99 red balloons. I actually had to go in and change the names of my videos. Instead of 99 red balloons, I had to call it something else, because many of them were getting shut down. Some of them are still up, and I renamed them something different. But here's the lady here. She was born in Kazakhstan, moved to Munich, and put on that TNT fashion show. Let's close this. So here are some of the videos that we did on this. The eclipse, the whole thing. We had a couple of eclipses that formed a cross across America. One of them started in Oregon, went across the entire United States, and like exited near, I think it was Georgia. They like to kick these things off with eclipses. Let me show you some of these videos that we did, showing the pre-program that seemed to be pointing towards a spamdemic that was spread in the air, and it was kicked off by eclipses, just like this one was, just like the CV. Let this load up. Got a lot of windows open. Sorry guys, it's taking a little bit longer than normal. And then, oh, don't let me forget, we're going to try to go into Google Earth and show you the Chancellor building. So here's all the videos we did. All I did was go onto YouTube. Apparently some of you don't have the ability to search on a specific channel through your mobile phones. I didn't know that. I keep telling you guys, oh, just go to my channel and do a channel search. Well, on the desktop, you can go on the channel and search through the channel. Well, I guess on your mobiles you can't. But you could still just come to YouTube, type in Enter the Stars Balloon, just like I have it right here. See all these videos that I renamed Amazing Balloon Discovery, and I numbered them. So you can just go through all of them. And all this was basically pre-programming about a spamdemic. Okay? And let's see, this is us live right now. That's cool. Let's get down in this one. There's me in France. People are like, why don't you ever show your face? Well, there I am right there. Lots of videos of me in France. Don't let the trolls get to you guys. They're going to say, oh, he doesn't show his face. They're just talking out of their you-know-whats. They don't know what's going on. They're just trying to create discord so that you don't believe the information. Instead of focusing on the information, it's just trolling. Okay, so here's, we saw this in Batman. This is this one here. Amazing Balloon Discovery number 5. In Batman, there was a float that gave off poison gas. That's one really good video. Here's the one on the last ship that we did, and she talks about 99 strains were tested, okay, in 1899. Well, watch this. This is going to blow you away. Because the 99 red balloons and all this that we were talking about 3 years ago, I think we figured it out. What I think it was, when we started picking up this chatter that they were encoding, we were trying to warn everybody with these eclipses that there would be a spamdemic. And then we said it was going to come from the west and move east along with the eclipses. And now we understand that eclipses have crowns. And the 99 red balloon videos that I just showed you, 99 isn't 99 at all. It was really 66. Yes, 6 is 9, 9 is 6. The two are interchangeable. All you got to do is flip it over. You rotate it. 99 was 66. Trump's 66th floor penthouse, 66 rooms at Mar-a-Lago. The Hilo 66 was the helicopter that picked up, or supposedly picked up, the astronauts. Let me find that. I had that pulled up here. Here it is. This is all about Apollo. Now it's interesting because there was a film called Apollo 13, and they actually changed the number on this famous helicopter. This is it right here. That apparently picked up the astronauts when they came back from the Apollo missions. There it is right there. It's famous. 66. Hilo 66 it's called. Of course, Helios is the sun god. Okay? Helios, Apollo 66, it all fits in together. All of this was planned. It's what I told you guys, the whole JFK thing. His Q-shaped grave site. Trump being 17 years old when JFK passed. Which is Q. 17 is Q. They planned all this. They knew Trump was going to be president back then. That's why your elections mean absolutely nothing. It's all fake. What is this? Oh, these are the early Gemini missions. And lo and behold, how many times did they orbit the early Gemini missions? How many times did they supposedly orbit the moon? Watch. Can't make this up. 66 orbit mission. It's because they knew. This is all part of an extravagant plan to guide America down a path. They know the end point already. They just have to put one foot in front of the other. Trust the plan. Execute the plan. Here it is here. 66 orbit mission. The Gemini missions is before they supposedly landed on the moon. And last but not least, the very first, one of the first Apollo missions supposedly happened in 1966. Let's find that on here. Uncrewed missions testing Apollo and the Saturn rocket began in February 1966. So now you hear all the 66s. Now you get how Trump ties into this, why he's reignited NASA, why he's talking about going to the moon again. One of the first presidents to really start talking about this and linking him back to JFK, who was also the moon president, right? And again, the Kuru Rona spamdemic was kicked off by the eclipse of December 26th, 1226, which in code is 6666. So now all this begins to make sense. The Apollo NASA connections we made back then were really all about Trump, under which the first planned demic would occur. The Apollo 66 president. Now, we talked about it, the path of one of those eclipses. I think it was on April or August 21st, 3 years ago. Went from like Oregon to Georgia. Talked about how it would spread from west coast to the east coast because of the path of the eclipse. And that's exactly what happened. NASA had launched these balloons during that eclipse to test the effects of radiation on the organism that they put inside of these balloons. So we called those the 99 red balloons. We had San Francisco and Washington State were the first places that really got infected with the CV. So that all dovetails into what we're talking about. We had Nina, the one who sings 99 Red Balloons. She did her first American tour in 2016. And then we said that was symbolic of the poison red balloons coming to America soon. The spamdemic. Now, before we get into, don't let me forget, we're going to go into Google Earth. I just want to make sure we get through these tabs first. We don't have a meltdown with the server. I want to play this video for you. This is Metallica. It's a video we did. Where'd it go? Oh, come on. It was here yesterday. Let's see here. Let's type in. This one really brings it all home because this video, if I can find it, I think it was from a song called All Nightmare Long. There it is. Shows the eclipse, the NASA spore balloons, drops. Let's play this. Now remember, most of this is fear. Now, release spores over the United States to kill all of us. This is from Death Magnetic, one of the singles released in 2008 on the date of the eclipse. This is unbelievable, you guys. Not playing the audio. Spores are collected. Revival organism causes a zombie apocalypse. So, All Nightmare Long is the name of the song by Metallica. There's a single on their album. It was called The Day That Never Comes, which is an eclipse, because the day never comes, right? The sun is covered. And on the outside of the black hole of the eclipse is the crown of the sun. Wow. Spores under their control, and it's time for the U.S. to basically pay the piper because we have waged war around the world. Russia makes samples. They put them up in a balloon across the United States. Here you see the trajectory, very similar to the eclipse path that we showed you guys. Look at the trajectory here. It goes from west to east. United States. Now in this scenario, in All Nightmare Long, the Metallica music video, the balloons come from like Japan or Russia, but in this case, of course, they came from China. Here you see the trajectory, very similar to the eclipse path. So there it is there. It's heading right toward the west coast. And remember, during that eclipse, NASA launched 50 balloons with an unknown spore over the entire United States in exactly the same way. The balloons reached 80,000 feet. Many people saw the launch. Some of you on this very channel watched these balloons go up. They were testing to see what ultraviolet radiation or lack thereof, or actually ultraviolet radiation would do to the spore. What are we talking about right now in the mainstream? UV killing these things. But here's the problem. When we did the research back then, we found out that UV can actually alter and mutate these organisms. We did a bunch of videos on that. Instead of kill them, it can actually mutate them into something else. Showed you guys. American forces spot the craft, but the altitude is unreachable. What were these balloons at 80,000 feet that NASA dropped? This is from 2008, you guys. Follows the jet stream, windborne. Whoa, look at that. This is from 2000. There it is right there. 99 red balloons. See them? Wow. Look, this almost comes right out of San Francisco. Now, there's a precedent for this because the U.S. already dropped spores, the Serratia marcansons, in the 70s and 80s over San Francisco, killed one person doing some kind of a test. This was a known pathogen at the time. They already knew it could kill people. It causes infections, and it's called it was called a pink bacterium, and which is like red, right? So that was like the 99 red balloons too. That was back in the 70s or 80s. Real story. It was called Operation Sea Spray, I believe. 2008, you guys. Follows the jet stream, windborne. There's your strain, zombie apocalypse. Everything we've been talking about. This is right out of the FX series, The Strain. And on the actual day of the eclipse, they showed us that the master is here. So during that time, remember this was back in 2017, we were decoding a series called The Strain. And on the day of the eclipse, they tweeted out, the official Strain Twitter account tweeted out, "The Master is here." Now, in the series, for those of you that saw The Strain, the Master was the head demon, the head infector of all of these zombies, vampires. See, there's the tweet there. The Master is here. It's probably still up on their website. Happened during the eclipse. They show a picture of the eclipse. See, they know exactly what's going on. 17, why did they do this in 2017? Because 17 is Q. They were telling us what was going to happen. And everyone's trusting the plan. And Trump's actually behind all this. He's playing right along. We're going to do a show. However, now all these YouTube channels are trying to blame Fauci. Yes, Fauci lied, but they're trying to make it sound like Trump didn't know what Fauci was doing. That's hogwash. Of course he knew. And shame on those channels for doing that. You saw the Golden Gate Bridge. There you saw it. We talked all about this. We showed you how Raccoon City was San Francisco. And the Twin Peaks of San Francisco have raccoon eyes around them. How the Princess ship has raccoon eyes on the front of the ship. All you have to do is look. The information's all there. And that there's a raccoon in Crown Drive right at the raccoon eyes, and that the word raccoon scrambled is CORONA. Watch. Wow, there's your chemtrails. Arsenic and barium. Unbelievable. Now, I don't know what this is all about. I don't know if they're using this to spread fear. My problem that I have with this is that no one else is making these connections. So how can this be creating fear if no one's making the connection between these NASA balloons and so on and so forth? So I don't understand that. It's like we're the only ones who see this. I'll put the link in the description. I didn't play the audio, obviously, for copyright. I know Metallica's very, very strict about their copyright. And we're seeing the strain. They show the headless zombie. They say it takes weeks to master stairs. FX tweeted out, "The master is here on the eclipse." You had to cut the heads off the zombies in the strain in order for them to die. So they show a headless zombie. You just heard that. And in the series The Strain, they had to cut the heads off. That was the only way to kill these zombies, zombie vampires they were. And here you see the headless zombie gets reanimated. And The Day That Never Comes, which was the single from that same album that released on the date of Eclipse, 8:21, the day that never comes is the eclipse, because it says, but the sunshine never comes, and no sunshine never comes. And here's the end of that music video as he looks up in the sky. And there's your eclipse. Boom. Metallica. And the last song on the album, My Apocalypse, as you can see here, mentions in the lyrics an eclipse, total eclipse. So we cross that line. The line of the totality of the eclipse. We, being America, we cross that line. I'm getting chills right now because it's almost as if we knew this was going to happen. Now, I didn't try to do this. I just get up every day. I listen to the Holy Spirit and what God's telling me to look at, and I research it and I present it to you guys. Here, 2017, we're talking about a total eclipse and a spamdemic, I guess you call it. Listen. Total eclipse, suffer unto my apocalypse, are the lyrics to the last song on that album. We just covered the day that never comes, all nightmare long, day and night. That's the eclipse. And the balloons dropping on that eclipse. Now, where did Metallica get this idea that balloons would be dropped over the United States with poison in them and disease? Well, they probably got the idea from the vengeance balloons that the Japanese were planning on launching over the Pacific Northwest, in which a person in Bly, Oregon, several people died because one of these exploded. They had bombs and disease. Bly, Oregon was the place where my father passed away in a car accident. And the first balloons were launched in 1944. They began landing over the United States. This is real. This is history. It was called Operation Cherry Blossom. 9/22/1945 was the scheduled date. Unit 31 was a specialized Japanese military that specialized in biological and chemical warfare. And their plan was to drop bubonic plague, cholera, and smallpox. This 731 group also did live human dissections. This is all in Wikipedia. 6 Americans were killed near Bly, Oregon, which is where my father died. And this is unbelievable because this is real. Because we dropped the nuclear bomb, they were never able to launch these. It was scheduled to launch September 22nd, but was not realized because of the surrender of Japan in August. So yes, Japan did plot to unleash a plague on the United States with balloons. Now, here are the balloons. They look much like the balloons that NASA launched over the United States during the eclipse. As we just saw Metallica, they showed the exact same scenario, except Russia was the one launching the bombs. The plan of the Japanese was to create forest fires with the bombs and also unleash disease into the United States. Some of these were filled with fleas that were infected with bubonic plague. The eclipse occurred on the 233rd day of the year, And these balloons from Japan were 33 feet in diameter, and their cargo was a 33-pound anti-personnel fragmentation bomb. This was in 2017. 33 and 33 is 66, you guys. It's like we knew what we were saying, but we weren't saying it. Now, on 3/13, March 13th, Friday the 13th, Trump declared a national state of emergency, and 3 times 13 is 39. 39 years between HV and CV. Let's keep watching. I'm going to leave links to all this. It's all here. They plan on launching these off of submarines that reached off of our coast. And then they were going to load them up with disease and launch these balloons, have them be carried by the jet stream over the United States. Here are the balloons here. Here's a map of where many of these balloons fell. And look at that. This is a real map of where these balloons fell. It follows the eclipse path of 821 almost to the T. The eclipse came through right here and down through Lake Georgia. There's another one that's going to happen, or did happen, I can't remember, but came through this way, and they cross in Memphis, Tennessee, I believe, in the middle. And we did a whole video on how America's Egypt and how these crossing eclipses marked the center point of Egypt, and how all of these places and cities and things basically are a metaphor for Egypt. And the Nile River, the Nile Delta, basically becomes the Mississippi inverted delta. All the tributaries feed in because everything's in reverse, right? Now, am I saying that they dropped balloons that made us all sick? No, that's not what I'm saying. This is all symbolic. So the red balloons are metaphors for how they wanted to spread this thing from the east, or from the west to the east. Okay, on the Gulf Stream. And that's exactly how all this played out. It's exactly how it played out. Started in China, hit the west coast, and went across. Let's keep going. Some reached all the way to Detroit. And in this strange occurrence, in me trying to research this Paenobacillus xerothermidurans, I came to California State University, Los Angeles, and did a search, and there was a person by the name of Jessica Cisneros who did a speech specifically about the Paenobacillus in 2012. I got a warning, not a secure site. They wouldn't let me into the site. And then when I tried to research this woman's name, it came up under some act that said she had the protection of scrubbing her name from Google searches. There's something going on here, and I need your guys' help. Biological tests and morphology of this bacillus fit no described species, according to studies. Now, I believe this was the actual organism that NASA launched in these balloons during the eclipse. I think was the Paenobacillus. We were researching that at the time. Who knows? This could have been a dry run for what we're dealing with right now. And when CNN does pieces like this, the big one is coming. This is chilling because this is right on the money as well. And it's going to be a flu pandemic. This was in April of this year. When they do stories like this and they talk about the 1918 pandemic. Whoa, that almost looks like the CV right there, does it not? But it's not, it's a flu. That killed 50 million people worldwide. And they say our only hope is flu vaccines. We know this is pre-programming us for something else. We are overdue, according to CNN. You guys, I'm just the messenger. I see the patterns. This isn't fear-mongering. I'm just showing you what they're showing us. Okay, that no one else has seen. Okay? That's what's going on here. Do with the information what you want, but people can't say that they weren't warned. So, what do you do with this kind of information? You're probably asking. Okay, Casey, you proved your point. You were warning and talking about this. Well, along with this message, I was trying to offer solutions. I was telling people, you don't want to be in big cities because they will control you. They can quarantine you. They can disappear you. I was saying all these things. And what did the naysayers said? Oh, you're fear-mongering. You can't run away from this. You can't. But you can be self-sufficient. You can be in a spot where you're less affected by this. And I tried to be an example by going somewhere where I could be less affected by something like this. And I got criticized for that. So, I'm not trying to make this about me, because it's really not. All the glory goes to God with this kind of stuff. I'm just a messenger. But when God's giving you clues and trying to help you see something and realize it, if you find yourself wanting to attack the messenger and wanting to attack the person who's trying to help you, that's on you. That's a heart issue. Now, I promised before we ended the show that I would go into Google Earth and show you the Chancellor Building. I got to be very careful about how I talk about this. Basically, I'm going to go in, I'm going to look at the Chancellor Building, I'm going to draw on it. And you have to, I'm not going to say anything while I'm over there. Okay? Let's close some of these windows. Let's see here. Actually, I got to leave that one open because I'm going to put links. Okay, let's just hope this doesn't crash this thing out here. Okay, I'm opening Google Earth. So that's what this is about. This is about protecting God's people. This is about the believers and giving you some guidance so that you can, not have to face hard decisions like a forced VC, which, believe it or not, when they start blocking streets off in these large cities and not allowing you in or out unless you have a VC, that's when you're going to look back and you're going to go, man, I should have listened to Casey. I should have got out of the big cities. What are we holding on to when we want to live in a big city? Well, it's just like Lot and his wife. Lot and his wife, they left the big city of Sodom and Gomorrah, but Lot's wife wanted to stay. And God turned her into a pillar of salt because she wanted to stay. She kept looking back at her beloved, beautiful city. She held on to the sin in the city, and she could not give herself over into actually following God and serving God, and therefore he turned her into a pillar of salt. Let's take a look at the Chancellor Building. Now this is going to blow some of you away because for those of you that live in Germany or know about Germany and its history, oh my gosh, how do we do this? Chancellor Building. Let's just put in Chancellor Building. Oh, are you serious? It's not going to give us this? Chancellor. Let's take the roads off here. Is this it? Maybe this is it. No, it's India. Chancellor. Let's just go to Germany. Those of you who live in Germany know that I'm not making this up about how sensitive they are about the H and the H, right? Oh, there it is. I've got it right there. I've already got a push pin for it. You already know how sensitive they are about this. So you know I'm not making this up. Why would they design it this way? This is a new building. This isn't an old building. And yet there it is. Now I didn't put this there. I'm just showing you. This is the head of government. Angela Merkel should live here, but I don't think she does, but this is where she would live. It's like our White House. Why would you do this if this is such a huge issue? Right? It's because it's all double speak. It's all doublespeak, you guys. Now this points to the seat of Satan. This forms a line that points right over here to this museum where the Pergamon sits. It's called the seat of Satan. It's in this museum right over here. Forms a direct alignment and it almost points exactly to where the seat of Satan is inside of the museum. I think the museum is maybe here. I don't know why I don't have a push pin there, but we did a whole video on that. There it is right there. You can't make this up.